A very good morning and warm welcome to Professor Sudeep Mishra from Smart Wellness Applications and Networking Lab, Department of Computer Science and Engineering, Indian Institute of Technology, Kharagpur. We are starting the second IEEE ComSoc Distinguished Lecture on UAV networks, architecture, opportunities, challenges, and future. Professor Sudeep Mishra is a full-time professor in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering at the Indian Institute of Technology, Kharagpur, India. Prior to this, he was associated with Cornell University, Yale University, Nortel Networks, Canada, and Government of Ontario, Canada. He received his PhD degree in computer science from Carleton University in Ottawa, Canada, and his master's and bachelor's degree respectively from the University of New Brunswick, Fredericton, Canada, and Indian Institute of Technology, Kharagpur, India. Professor Mishra has several years of experience and working in the academia, government, and the private sectors in research, teaching, consulting, project management, software design, and product engineering roles. His current research interests include mobile ad hoc and sensor networks, Internet of Things, computer networks, and learning systems. Professor Mishra is the author of over 300 scholarly research papers, of which over 170 of them are in the distinguished journals. Professor Mishra has won 10 research paper awards in different international conferences and journals. He was awarded the most coveted Career 360 Outstanding Faculty Award in 2018 for his distinguished contributions in computer science. Professor Mishra has received the Faculty Excellence Award at IIT Kharagpur in 2017. He is the only researcher to receive the award from all disciplines of electrical and computer sciences. Professor Mishra has received the IEEE ComSoc Asia Pacific Outstanding Young Researcher Award at IEEE Globecom 2012, Anaheim, California, US. Further, his team was awarded the Gaiety Award 2018 by President of India and the third prize in the Samsung Innovation Award 2014 at IIT Kharagpur. The IBM Innovation Award in 2016 at IIT Kharagpur. He was also the recipient of several academic awards and fellowships such as the Youngest Scientist Award by National Academy of Science, India, Young System Scientist Award from System Society of India, Young Engineers Award from Institution of Engineers, India, Canadian Governor General's Academic Gold Medal at Carleton University, the University Outstanding Graduate Student Award in the doctoral event at Carleton University, and the National Academy of Science India Swarna Jayanti Puraskar Golden Jubilee Award. He was also awarded Canadian government's prestigious NACRC Postdoctoral Fellowship and the Humboldt Research Fellowship in Germany. Professor Mishra has been serving as the Associate Editor of the IEEE Transactions in Mobile Computing, IEEE Transactions on Vehicular Technology, and IEEE Systems Journal, International Journal of Communication Systems Wiley, and IET Communications Journal. Professor Mishra has published 10 books in the area of opportunistic networks, wireless ad hoc networks, wireless sensor networks, well as mesh networks, communication networks, and distributed systems, network reliability and fault tolerance, also in information theory and coding. Published by reputed publishers such as Springer, Cambridge University Press, Wiley, and World Scientific. Professor Misra is the Fellow of National Academy of Science, NASI, India, the Institution of Engineers and Technology, IET, UK, and the Institution of Electronics and Telecommunication Engineering, IET, India. Thank you, sir, for accepting our invitation today. And may I request Professor Misra now to start his lecture for this session. Thank you, sir.
So thank you very much, Professor Das, for this introduction. It was quite elaborate. So thank you so much. So it's a early morning on Sunday, and I am also thankful to all the participants that instead of spending time elsewhere, so they have taken this opportunity to join this particular talk. So thanks to everyone. So I am going to talk on UAV networks and some of the basics like the architectures, the different research opportunities, the research challenges, and the future directions of research. So this is being delivered as part of my IEEE Communications Society Distinguished Lecture. And so I'm thankful to NIT Rourkela for inviting me to deliver this particular distinguished lecture. So here, what I would do is I am going to present some of the research works that are being done globally on this topic, and also I'm going to focus on some of the efforts that we have been taking in the SWAN lab, the Smart Wireless Applications and Networking Lab, towards the objective of reliable, stable UAV network setup. Right, so UAVs, as you know, have become very popular in recent times. Unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, the full form is unmanned aerial vehicles, just in case you do not already know. And one of the common unmanned aerial vehicles that is quite commonly used everywhere is basically the drones, right? So everybody knows by the term drone, even if you do not know that it's a unmanned aerial vehicle, but drones are also unmanned aerial vehicles. Like this, drones are not the only unmanned aerial vehicles. There are so many different others that are also there. So I'm going to touch upon some of these, and we'll see, so what sort of things that we are doing. So just wanted to mention that the research in the direction of UAV networks, it's highly challenging, right? So I have a research team that has been working since about 5-6 years on UAV networks. So we have done a lot of different types of experimentations, right? So right from the beginning, we have been working on different fundamental research problems, including building UAVs indigenously, completely ourselves. But this is a domain that is highly challenging. So even if there is a lot of interest on UAVs globally, but in terms of the actual applicability of UAV networks, it is still quite restricted compared to the amount of time and money that is being invested on UAVs and UAV research globally. So so UAVs still are very attractive due to large number of different reasons, because it is autonomous airborne vehicle. So you can do lot of work using the UAVs, which are difficult to be done through human intervention. So UAVs are good for carrying out those sort of missions. For example, I'll just give you a small example. UAVs are good, like, so forget about UAV networks, but simple like single UAVs, these are good for carrying out, let us say, reconnaissance survey, right? So let us say that, in military operations, right? So before actually any kind of military operation is undertaken, it is quite common to do some kind of reconnaissance survey. Wherever the military operation is going to happen. So normally these are done very confidentially. That is why a lot of not just UAVs but like stealth technology, etc. So these are done so that even if the survey is done, the enemy should not be able to understand. So it's a highly complex kind of domain, right? And not only it is complex, but also there is a lot of interdisciplinarity that lies in the works on UAVs. That is why so I have been collaborating with my colleagues in IIT Kharagpur, working on from the aerospace department, for some application oriented work. I have been collaborating with my colleagues from the agricultural engineering department, like that. So a lot of different collaborations are required. So basically it involves work in the disciplines of not only computer science but also electrical engineering, electronics, control systems, then of course so in computer science also, like heavy involvement of learning technologies and artificial intelligence, plus mechanical and aerospace, right? So aeronautics, basically mechanical and aeronautics. So these are also there, like this. So these are basically when we are talking about building the systems, UAV based systems. And not only these, but also when you are talking about applications, right? So I have been working quite extensively on the agricultural applications. So there actually you need collaborations from the agricultural scientists, like this. So UAVs are being used for large number of different things. So UAVs are very popular for both civilian applications as well as military applications. And military applications are quite common of UAVs, particularly in the foreign countries. And just in case you are curious, lot of materials are available in the internet through simple search on UAVs, and you will be able to see a lot of these things, a lot of research being done. A lot of advanced countries, they are using UAVs for carrying out military operations as well, right? In our country also, in some of the Bollywood movies, you must have seen the use of UAVs, right? If I remember correctly, it was in the movie Udi, right? So over there, the UAVs was shown, use of UAVs. So like this, actually, UAVs are very attractive. So now we need to understand that UAVs are good, but why we are talking about network of UAVs, right? So the network of UAVs is, the advantage is that you can carry out missions much more scalably and much more efficiently if you are using a network of UAVs instead of a single UAV. And that is why the network of UAVs is becoming very popular. But even if it is very attractive, network of UAVs is very attractive, but the main challenge is how do you build such a network? Because we are talking about a highly dynamic airborne system. So how do you build such a network? That is very challenging. And the other thing is that if you want to if you want to do certain things autonomously, for this lot of computation is involved, right? So how do you do much of the onboard computation? Because most of the onboard systems, communication systems that are placed on the UAVs, these have very limited capabilities. So how do you carry on these kind of complex executions of different algorithms? Like, for example, you want to run deep neural network, or even like simple like neural networks, right? So on the onboard processor, it is not so convenient, and also not only convenient, but also it is not very much efficient to carry on these kind of executions over there. So these are like some small challenges that I'm mentioning, but like this, actually there are plenty of challenges, right? So, and researchers globally, they are focusing on one or two aspects of each of these. So everybody focuses on something, and then collectively we are trying to come up with a solution that will be useful. So this is about building UAVs, but also there are a lot of analytical and simulation based works that are also being undertaken, right? So, and that is also very important, right? So in our research group also, we have been doing a lot of analytical and simulation based works. The reason is that many things you cannot do simply by flying the UAVs. You need to really do a lot of tests, etc., performance evaluation through the analytical model, use of analytical models, right? So that is what we have also been trying to do parallelly. So now let us talk about the type of UAVs that are commonly available, right? So UAVs, so UAVs are of different types. I'm going to talk about the types of UAVs, but before this, so if we are talking about a single UAV, this is like an aircraft, right? So like an aircraft. So aircraft has its own different components. So whatever any aircraft has. So similar kind of components are here also to make it airborne, to make it fly. Plus, not only the aircraft components are there, but also the UAVs, they would carry some payload, right? And they would be communicating with the control station, which is typically in the ground, on the ground, some control station which is going to control the UAV. So some kind of communication mechanism with the ground is required, and also between the UAVs, that is also particularly prevalent when we are talking about a network of UAVs. So, and in terms of the control, in the earlier times, particularly when we started working on the UAVs about 5-6 years or a little more back, at that time, mostly the commercially available UAVs or the drones that were available, those were like remote controlled, right? So there is a remote pilot who is going to operate the drone, right? So it is like a for the children, you must have observed that there are remote helicopters, right? So it's very similar to the remote helicopter. So you have the remote piloted drones. So remote control drones has obvious limitations, as you can understand. Not only that, it is controlled by some human, so human intervention is required, but also in terms of the scalability and in terms of the use in terms of increasing the number of UAVs, etc. So this becomes very not so kind of usable. So we started working on the use of autonomous control, right? So most of the UAVs that we have built in our lab, Swan Lab, these are actually autonomously controlled, indigenously developed UAVs. But then we found that even if we were successful in building autonomously controlled UAVs, about 5 to 6 years back, and we were also in the news, like in the print media as well as in the televised media, we were there. But we were not very satisfied. The reason is that even if we are theoretically able to achieve a lot of autonomy in the drones and network of drones, but the main challenge was that in terms of undertaking the missions, right, in real life. So our drones were still very limited, and we undertook those kind of research, and we have been able to get a little bit of momentum. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you some video about the use of drones for undertaking different missions. So I mean, before I show you those, let me also tell you about the different types of UAVs. So here in this particular slide, what you see are the three types of drones. One is the fixed wing drone, the second is the flapping wing, and the third is the rotor wing, right? So these are the three different types, the three pictures that you can see. Fixed wing, the first one on the top is the fixed wing drone. Then you have the rotor wings, like the quad rotor. You must have heard about the quad rotor, right? So which basically vertically lifts off itself. Quad rotor, then you have hexacopters, octocopters, etc. So you have the rotor wings. So these are the rotors, right? So on the very bottom, this particular picture, as you can see, these are the rotor wings, right? So these are going to rotate in a particular fashion, and because of which there is a lift that is generated, and the drone basically takes off. And the third, on the right hand side that you see, is basically the flapping wing. Flapping wing, the principle is very similar to how the birds they fly. So flapping wing drones are also very commonly used. And so these are the three different types of drones that are popularly commercially available as well nowadays. And whatever be the type, but you can develop a network of these different drones and heterogeneous types of drones also you can have in the single system, and you can you can build the system in such a way that it can carry out certain complex missions. Basically, the type of drone which you are going to use, it all depends on the application that you have in hand. For example, in agricultural applications, the fixed rotor, the rotor wings drones, the quadcopter, etc. These are more useful. However, if you are talking about a reconnaissance kind of thing, they are actually the fixed wings are more useful, right? So like this, actually, it all depends on the type of application that you want to use the drone or the network of drones for. So now I'm going to start a video which has been developed by us in our lab to show you some of the works that we have been undertaking on the use of drones and network of drones. So I'm going to show you that, and after that again we are going to come back and see some of the other stuff.
Sir, could you share the video, please? Because we are not able to see it.
Professor Misra?
Yeah.
Yeah, we are not able to see your video play.
Is that right? Oh, okay. Were you able to see my slides?
Yes, that slide, it is stuck up there only.
Oh,
where
okay.
the link is given.
Right. So let me see, maybe there will be some sharing option, which I have not done properly, maybe. So let me, okay, so thanks for pointing it out. Is it visible, this part?
Not right now.
Could somebody help me, how to, so I am just clicking on the share content.
Sir, do
Sir,
on
you
the
should share your desktop actually. Desktop
yeah.
screen, entire
Oh,
screen.
I have to share the desktop. Okay.
In that case, we will be able to.
Is it visible now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect, sir.
Okay. So again, later on, again, when we switch back to the PowerPoint, at that time also, if it, in case it is not visible, please let me know.
Okay, sir. Sir, please play that video. Yes.
Are you saying something?
Yeah. but no sound.
No sound
Cannot
is
hear.
going through. Oh my God. So again, I do not know what to do. So you are not able to get the sound?
No. No, sir.
Right. Let me stop sharing again. Tell me, what has to be done. So I am sharing screen.
Sir, you have to include a computer audio, sir. You have to include computer
Oh,
audio.
this one. Computer in. Gotcha. Okay. Is this the one? Switch speakers to include audio. Get to the computer sound and select speakers. So how do I do this? There should be some settings, right? Computer source.
No, sir. While sharing, you can see there is an option include computer audio, something like that.
Yeah, but when I click on this, I'm getting go to your computer's sound settings and select speakers. All right, so I think it should be somewhere in the settings. Let me device settings. Speakers. Sound settings and speaker. Gotcha. Okay. I think this is the one.
কোথায় গিয়েছিল রে? এ তো অনেক অন্য জায়গায়, এর মধ্যে নাকি?
এখানে নালে এখন পাঠাবে কেন? এখানে আর পাঠ দেখছো?
জিজ্ঞেস করো কোথায়?
Excuse me, sir. While when you click on share content,
Right.
over there on the top there will be one option, include computer sound.
Yeah. Actually, I am clicking on that one, include computer sound. When I click on that, I am getting a message that go to your computer sound settings and select speakers, right? So I am doing that by going to the settings, device settings.
Please select system sound, sir. While sharing the screen, please select system sound.
Yeah, it is that only. It is already selected actually. This one, speakers, yeah. I do not know, but I think sound is not required, right? So if you
Okay, it's not required. Please play the video only.
Yeah,
It will
the sound is just the background
It's
music.
not required.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, sir.
You able to see?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Okay.
Hello.
Is it visible, my slide?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So sorry about the audio part. So as you have seen in the video that, building a swarm like a simple network of UAVs is not very easy, right? So simple problems, those have to be dealt with, like, error propagation, as you have seen, right? So this is a very common thing, so every day the researchers who are working on UAV swarms, building UAV swarms, these are all very challenging things that, people are globally, people are working on. So this is one thing. And also in terms of the applications, as you have seen that a lot of different applications exist, we ourselves are working on this. I think this is the third project that we have on the use of network of UAVs for agricultural application, and also for crowd monitoring. Crowd monitoring is very attractive in our country for large number of different applications, such as, let us say, during Kumbh Mela, right? So during Kumbh Mela, so crowd monitoring is a huge thing. So UAVs and network of UAVs could be used for monitoring of crowd, and simple application of counting the numbers in the different clusters, that itself is quite computationally intensive. And when you are talking about even more sophisticated applications, the computations that would be involved are going to be even more, and because of which it will be even more challenging to build such an application, right? So like this, actually, that is the reason on the core network of UAVs research as well as the application orientations, basically, a lot of research is being undertaken, but at the same time, a lot of challenges are still lying ahead, which researchers working in this particular domain are working on. So when we talk about these network of UAVs, couple of things are very important. Number one is the type of topology, right? So when we talk about any network, as you if you have done a course on networks before, and I think most of you have, so you know that basically, what is interesting, what is fundamental is to know the type of network topology, right? So when we are talking about a network of UAVs, typically two types of network topologies are very commonly used. One is called the star topology, the other one is called the mesh topology. So basically, these connotations are very similar to the internet network topology, star, mesh, that we are familiar with, and these are also applicable over here. But I'm going to also show you some of the different pictures in a short while, how these different topologies look like. So so the next thing is about the type of infrastructure. So these network of UAVs are typically infrastructure-less. There is no fixed infrastructure that is there. So these are typically, ad hoc networks, right? So these are flying ad hoc networks. And if these flying entities, they are fitted with different sensors, then what you get is a flying ad hoc sensor network, right? So it becomes a sensor network, flying sensor network. So what is interesting is that these UAVs, these are not only autonomous, but these are infrastructure-less. There is no single, there is no single access point, or there is no single, fixed entity like a cellular tower or something, base station, etc., which basically controls the entire entire swarm, right? So the whole idea is to build these completely infrastructure-less, although that is not happening completely at present, but that is the whole idea, to build completely ad hoc flying networks. Then the other feature is the flexibility in terms of deployment, right? So because of the nature of these UAVs, because they can fly, they can quickly, they can scatter all around, and they can also have different types of formations between them, because of which there is a lot of flexibility that exists in terms of the deployment of the UAVs, and that is attractive of the UAVs to carry out a lot of application oriented services using UAVs. Routing is one of the core functions of any network, and over here also in UAV network, routing is very challenging. So the reason being that you need some kind of an adaptation. It's a completely autonomous system, and you need adaptive routing mechanisms in order to be able to make these work in this kind of environment. And the other challenge is the dynamism that exists between the different entities, between the different nodes, right? So this is a flying network, and you have the nodes which are fast moving, and the topology also changes quite fast. So you need to have a complete adaptive system, and with respect to routing, you need to have a completely adaptive routing and communication system, right? Large coverage area. These UAVs, they can fly at different places very fast, and you need to have spatio-temporal coverage, and that is very interesting of any mobile network, and particularly mobile sensor networks. And these could be, like as I said before, these could be used as mobile sensor networks. So coverage with respect to the area being sensed, right? So area being covered under their respective sensors. So if these are fitted with different cameras, the camera sensors, how far of the area is being covered, and spatio-temporally. That means that not only with respect to the space, but also with respect to the time, what is the coverage? So that is an interesting problem to be studied. And these are reprogrammable and reconfigurable systems, right? So as these terms suggest, right? So these are reconfigurable, and you can use them, reprogram them for suiting the different application requirements. Multitasking is also very important. So you can have, let us say that you have 3 drones which are network. So you can have drone 1 do a particular task, whereas the other drones, they could be undertaking some other tasks, right? So multitasking for a particular application service, this is possible with the help of these drones and the network of drones. So there are so many different challenges, so many attractive features are there, but at the same time, a lot of different challenges. I already mentioned about the fast changing topology, and because of the fast and frequent changing topology, what happens is there are a lot of possibilities of malfunctioning that can happen, not only within the UAVs, by the UAVs, in the UAVs themselves, but also because of the network that is formed between the different UAVs. So you can have malfunctioning in the individual UAVs, you can have malfunctioning in the network, and so there could be different types of malfunctions that could happen. And I have already shown you in the video one simple malfunction in the swarm. One UAV has some error, so that error gets propagated throughout the entire swarm in the different other members of the swarm, right? So malfunctioning is a huge challenge that has to be dealt with, right? And then routing, already I mentioned, dealing with the weather conditions, right? So dealing with the weather conditions, because typically so a couple of things, right? So one is basically the wind gust, etc. Most of these autonomous UAVs that we have built in our lab, and what other people have also built, what they do is basically they have their own control system which can take care of the weather conditions to some extent, like wind gusts, etc., to certain extent. But at the same time, so these also have their own limitations. They can take control of these to certain extent, but not fully. And another thing that is also very important to understand is that most of these outdoor drones, these are fitted with GPS, right? So these are fitted with GPS, and GPS, as most of us know, that GPS is not very effective for use when it is under, when the weather is cloudy, right? So under cloud cover, use of drones, flying drones, that is not going to be very much possible. So weather conditions, dealing with the weather conditions, and stability is another thing. Failure of the links, because you have a fast changing topology, so link failures are very common. Not only node failures, link failures. In fact, the entire system can fail pretty fast. So building such a system is the huge challenge. So that is the reason why there is so much of research that is going on, and still we do not have the momentum gathered yet. So link breakage, from a network point of view, link breakage, malfunctioning of the network, malfunctioning of the individual nodes. Power consumption is very important, because what we have is an ad hoc network, flying ad hoc sensor network. And as we all know, that when we are talking about an ad hoc and sensor network, power consumption is very vital. And so how do you ensure power consumption, very reduced power consumption? So from our experience of building drones, so most of the commercially available batteries that are used in the drones, LiPo batteries, for example, these batteries, they can make a particular a drone survive in its flight for 20 minutes or 30 minutes maximum, right? So depending on the type of executions, the computations that it is doing, the type of communication, etc., the nature of these, basically the power consumption is quite heavy, right? So you need to cut down on the power consumption in all respects, with respect at the device level, for the flight of the drone, the power that is required, then at so at the communication level, that means the protocols that are going to execute, the algorithms that are going to execute. So all of these, plus the computations that would be involved, right? So all of these will need to be very much power aware. So power consumption is a very important issue to be dealt with when you are working on a network of drones. Plus there are complex interconnections and effect of effect on the signal, communicating the signals that are being sent between the drones and also from the drones to the ground station. So these signals are also heavily dependent, or these get attenuated due to the different environmental conditions, and one needs to deal with all of these, right? Reliability is very important to ensure, so reliability of data transmission, right? So when we are talking about communication, so the drones, because you are talking about multiple drones, it is also possible to ensure that there is reliability in communication, so that the packets don't get dropped in between. Then it is also possible to use the network of drones for reprogramming the drone based on the the mission requirements. and also the survivability, again because of the numbers, you have more numbers, so survivability is also increased. There doesn't become a single point of failure. I mean, see, these are the things that one needs to ensure, right? So in the video that I had shown you, there was a single point of failure, right? But at the same time, there may not be, right? So because you have the numbers, you can build the system in such a way that there is no single point of failure. Cost effectiveness is also very important, plus robustness and ease of deployment. These are some of these different advantages that one can get by networking the different drones together. In terms of the topologies, I told you earlier that some of the basic topologies that are commonly used are the star and the mesh. Again, star, different types, like the picture that shows is a simple star configuration, but then you can also have multi-star configuration that I'm going to show you in the next little while. And also there is some of the features of the star-based configuration is that there is dependency on the ground station, plus there is increased latency, right? Because you are, when you are talking about a star configuration, the path that the signal propagates through, that basically increases, right? So basically what happens is there is increased latency in the communication of the transmission of the signals from the source to the destination. So simple star and multi-star configurations in the picture. So on the left hand side is the simple star configuration. So a wireless controller controlling all of them in a star-like kind of formation. And on the right hand side, what you see is the multi-star configuration, where you have like different clusters, and these wireless controller, they basically they communicate with the cluster head, which acts as a gateway. So the gateway UAVs are all connected through the wireless controller, and these individual members of the clusters, they communicate with their gateway. So in terms of the mesh topology, as we all know from our knowledge in computer networks, that any kind of mesh basically increases the reliability, right? So because you have multiple paths, multiple links that are possible between a pair of UAVs, right, or a pair of nodes, right? So the same thing applies over here as well. Because of the mesh configuration, you have increased reliability. So if one link breaks, there are other links that can carry that can transmit the packet that is resident in one of the drones. So mesh topology is very commonly used because of these fast changing topologies. Mesh topologies could be flat mesh, hierarchical mesh. Both of these types I'm going to show you next. But the most important thing is that with the mesh topology, you get a lot of flexibility, reliability in communication, and also you can increase the security in terms of connectivity. So this is the left hand side is the flat mesh topology, and right hand side is the hierarchical mesh topology. As you can see over here, it's a simple mesh on the left side. On the right hand side, what you see is again different clusters which are in the mesh. So you have a hierarchy, so hierarchical control through the wireless controller. So both the flat and the mesh topologies are commonly used in the network of drones. So what is the difference between the star and the mesh? These are some of these points of differences. I'm not going to go through all of them because already we have lost some time in between. So very quickly, so here in the star topology, you have more of you have less of multi-point support, right? So it is more of point to point. On the other hand, in a mesh topology, you have support for multi-point communication. And star topologies, these are less self-configuring, whereas the mesh topologies are more self-configuring. Like this, actually, there are different other points of differences between the star and the mesh topologies. So I was telling you a little while back that there is, these ad hoc networks that are formed due to these flying UAVs. And these are all infrastructureless, right? So basically, so these networks, because these are ad hoc networks, these will have to self-manage, they will have to self-configure, and they will have to take care of their operations on their own, right? So these are the different layers in which the ad hoc network would also be formed. As you can see in one layer one, from the vertical profile, as you can see that from the layer 1 you have a single UAV, in layer 2 you have 3, and in layer 3 also you have 3. So these are in different altitudes from the ground, and so these layered formations are typically done in order to so reduce the collisions that are possible. So collision avoidance is possible to some extent because these are all layered. You can avoid the collision also, and also the reliability in terms of communication with the ground station, these are also increased because of this sort of formation. So when we talk about this kind of a hierarchical kind of ad hoc network, then so there are different types of communications that are required. One within the plane. So if you look at layer 3, for example, over here in this particular figure, as you can see that between the different members A, B, and C of the layer 3, there is communication. So you have intra-plane communication between the different drones of the particular layer. And then you have between the different layers also interplane communication. So for example, UAV 3A communicating with UAV 2A, and likewise there are different other instances also. Plus there is communication between the UAVs of the different layers to the ground station. So ground station communication and ground sensor communication. So so these are some of these different attractive types of linkages that could be built using these different UAVs, network of UAVs. Another thing that is also particularly important nowadays is different VANET applications, right? So vehicular ad hoc network. So basically, you have ground vehicles which are basically connected to flying UAVs. There are a number of different applications. For example, police, right? So police often they fly UAVs to to detect as well as to track the trajectories of suspicious vehicles, right? So what the police do is that they fly a UAV, and whoever is detected as the one that is suspicious for one reason or the other, so that particular the trajectory of that particular UAV is that particular vehicle is basically kept track of. So like this, actually there are so many different other applications also of UAVs connecting with vehicular ad hoc networks. So there are huge communication requirements that are required. So sending sensor data to the nearest access point, receiving control packets. Cooperation is a very interesting thing because we have an ad hoc network. In fact, so cooperation between the different nodes is important. Otherwise, the entire network is going to collapse, right? So what happens is that if a particular UAV A wants to send some data to UAV B, and that UAV B is not within the direct transmission range of A, and there is an intermediate node C in between. So UAV A is going to take help of the intermediate node C, which is going to act as the relay in the communication between A and B, right? So basically C has to cooperate with the nodes A and B in order for successfully transmitting the data from A to B, right? So that is the cooperation. So basically this issue of cooperation has to be dealt with over here as well in the flying UAV networks. Strategy is important, path planning is important. So path planning is very important. Number one, for avoiding obstacles. Number two, for application requirements and serving the application requirements. These are very important. Plus, task allocation is also a very important aspect. We have been working a lot on the task allocation. So, I told you that multiple UAVs in a particular formation could be carrying out different tasks in a multitasking kind of fashion. So how which task will be allocated to which UAV? The dynamic task allocation is a very important problem. So these are all like research challenges people are working on. We ourselves have also done a lot of work on this. So this is just an expository talk to make you aware of these different challenges that exist. So in terms of the gateway selection, basically, it is typically the type of gateway selection mechanisms that are used is to divide that 2D or the 3D area into different sub areas. And then for each area, you get, you have a drone, you have a UAV, which is going to take care of that particular area for its, surveillance or whatever be the application. So gateway selection is also a very important issue. Now, in terms of the deployment strategies, there are manual deployment mechanisms that could be used. There are autonomous, UAV controls that could be used. Plus, UAV. I already told you about UAV to vehicles, UAV to wireless sensor networks on the ground, on the air. These are all there. Plus UAV swarm. Nowadays, people are talking about research. There is a lot of research. You will find a lot of special issues which are talking about UAV to satellite communication, right? So UAV to satellite. Right, so direct communication. So this is very highly challenging, as you know that satellite communication is, so it's highly power hungry, right? So power hungry, and it's also very, it has its own different challenges, right? So UAV to all of these are all possible, including ground vehicles. So we ourselves in an agricultural application, we worked on UAVs to unmanned ground vehicle. So we did that because the ground vehicle for us was basically a planting device, right? A planting device that we had built along with our colleagues in Indian Agricultural Research Institute, Delhi. So we have built the ground vehicle. So UAV to ground vehicle communication also we have worked on. So like this, actually, there are so many different things that we have been working on along with other researchers. Also, we are not the only ones in the world working on this. So there are so many research efforts that are being undertaken in this particular domain. So very quickly, I'm very sorry, actually, I'm just trying to be too fast. I hope that you are able to follow. In case you have any questions, just feel free to ask at any time or at the end. So in terms of the manual UAV communication, manual UAV control, these, as I told you at the beginning, these are typically, remote control, right? So remote controlled UAVs. These are human operated, and these could be used for almost any kind of application. So all you need to do is to change the type of sensors that are there in these UAVs, and then these could do their corresponding sensing operations based on the sensors that are fitted to them, right? So the limitations of these manual control UAVs are that there is line of sight operation that is in place. So the human operator as well as the UAV, they need to be in the line of sight of each other, right? And this type of manual UAV control is dependent on the human for stability, control, recovery, everything, right? Because it is like a flying helicopter, the kids fly, right? So similar kind of thing. So for everything you need to, stability is also manually controlled. For the control operations also, these are also manually controlled. Everything is manually controlled, right? But these are less reliable. And obviously, wherever you have manual interventions, the corresponding limitations also come into picture. So when we talk about autonomous UAV, on the other hand, and this is most of the work that we have done are all autonomous. And the early days when we started working on the autonomous UAVs, so at that time, actually very less work was existing on autonomous UAV networks, right? Some autonomous UAV works were there, but not much on the autonomous UAV networks. And this is what we have done. So we have been successfully able to build, when I say successfully, to some extent only, right? So the proof of concept has been built, but again, there are a lot of limitations that exist in our systems also. So two types of autonomous UAV controls: fully autonomous or partially autonomous. So as you can understand, fully means that there are, so no human intervention at all, and partially autonomous means that mostly it is autonomous, but at certain times for certain tasks, basically human interventions are required. So again, these are also, they have their own different challenges. So for example, optimizing the power, optimizing the algorithm execution, which UAV is going to take care of which aspect, and so on. So like this, actually, there are so many different aspects of limitations of autonomous UAVs that exist. So, so this is just an example of a fully autonomous UAV. So where you have a remote controller sending control messages to the UAVs, like in the particular picture, as you can see, this remote controller, it sends all the messages to the UAV, and the UAV, keeps on, undertaking the particular tasks based on the messages that it receives. And there is no human intervention at all, and the remote controller is responsible for adapting to all the changes in the environment. And these are all reported by the UAV itself. So based on the reports that the UAV sends, basically the human controller, the LS controller, the remote controller, autonomous controller, basically takes care of planning the trajectory of flight or the operations of the UAV. So then comes the partially autonomous situation. Here, as you can see again, that this is the situation for partially autonomous. Here you also have some kind of human intervention, as shown in this particular figure. So human machine control is there, and the human basically sends some passive inputs with respect to, for example, the area of operation or the tasks that will have to be undertaken, or the flight path, etc. And the rest of the stuff is taken care of autonomously by the algorithms that are executing in these UAVs. So this kind of symbiosis, as I told you earlier, that UAV wireless sensor network symbiosis is very popularly used. So you have ground sensor networks and you have the flying UAVs. So for large number of different reasons, this kind of communication is useful. What you can have are these individual wireless sensor networks, which will be continuously collecting the data, and these data are going to be stored locally. And then you can have the UAV, which will act as a data mule, right? So it will act as a data mule. So it will fly in that particular terrain over the very close to the wireless sensor nodes that are deployed, particularly in agricultural applications. We have tried this. So this UAV is going to act as a data mule. It is going to collect the data from each of these different nodes and then bring it to the the remote station for further processing. UAV swarms are, as I showed you, that swarm formations are very interesting, but at the same time challenging as well. When you increase the number of members in the swarm, what essentially happens is that you are losing on the QoS, right? So how do you deal with it? Because as most of us know from the communication, that when you are talking about a multi-hop kind of network and you are increasing the number of nodes in that particular network, basically with respect to the number of nodes, the throughput basically goes down quite fast. So how do you take control of that, right? So that is basically an interesting, a challenging problem to work on when you are talking about UAV swarm. Not only throughput, but also with respect to most of the quality of service parameters, this is the case. So a lot of limitations exist, sensitivity of the sensor indices, sensor calibration, data precision due to the UAV altitude, because you are sensing from a particular height, from an altitude. So the data precision is very interesting, so one needs to consider that. Periodic mapping of the data from the ground sensor network, sensor size and payload, and the battery consumption and capacity. Obstacle avoidance is very important, and this has to be dealt with fundamentally for any UAV. And when you are talking about network of UAVs, this formation itself has to make sure that they fly in such a formation that obstacles are avoided, right? So that there is no collision with the fixed obstacles that are in their flight path. So scope for improvement, a lot of different scope for like with respect to the smooth handling, power consumption, increasing the lifetime. I already told you that UAVs and network of UAVs, this is a huge challenge. And how do you deal with it? Weatherproofing, collision avoidance, and assessment. So there are like this, actually there are so many different challenges. It is a huge area of research with a lot of potential. What we have experienced is we have done like small contributions, but these contributions become very interesting. So we have been working on UAVs with cloud interfacing, UAVs with fog computing platforms, so a lot of different things can be done. The only thing is that, again, when you are trying to do this kind of interfacing, how do you build such a system, and also how do you have these kind of communications between these different layers like fog, cloud, etc. And finally, UAVs and the terahertz band communication is also growing very popularity in terms of research. Use of millimeter waves. I think Professor Mohapatra was talking about millimeter wave communication earlier. So use of millimeter wave based communication for this kind of UAV. Then you have use of small base stations, massive MIMO, beam forming. So many different aspects of research are in the forefront that people are taking at present. So a lot of different applications of use cases like agriculture, military applications, sports, retirement, sports and entertainment, amusement, racing, etc., waste management. Like this, actually, there are so many different other use cases in place. So the final thing that I'm going to do before I end is to run you through another video. So this is basically going to show you how the UAV formations and the coordination between the different members of a UAV are done. Before I end, I need to acknowledge the team members. So they have been working relentlessly on the different aspects of UAV networks. So I would like to thank all of them and give credit to all of these students. So finally, I need to show you the video. So again, please let me know whether you are able to. Are you able to see the browser window? Is this visible, the browser screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. So very quickly, I'm going to, this is a very short video. So this is basically the helipad at IIT Kharagpur, where we do most of our flight tests. So that's all. I just did a little bit of fast forwarding. So this is how the swarms have been tested. In case you are interested, you could visit our YouTube pages. So we have a separate channel for our drone squad at IIT Kharagpur. So you will be able to see a lot of our flight tests. So what we do and what we have been doing on the UAVs and network of UAVs. So with this, thank you so much. I am 5 minutes over time, so sorry about that. So if you have any question, I would be happy to answer.
Hello, sir.
Yes, please.
Sir, I am Gyanaranjan Mati. I am from NIT Raulkela.
Right.
And this is a very nice presentation also, and it is very informative to us also. I am also working in 5G beamforming, millimeter wave beamforming. So
right.
my working area actually cover a 200 by 200 meter geolocations.
Right.
Geolocations. It is basically on latitude longitude basis. So
right.
I want to extract the altitude informations of the geolocations. And I knew that IR sensor based UAV can give us informations about the meteorology, means what kind of surface it is, that building or vegetation area or tree, whether it is a tree or whether it is a land surface, whether it is a water body, it can give us that information. But my query is that how many UAV I should procure so that it can give a accurate altitude informations and the type of the surfaces.
Right. So this is basically, problem of coverage, right? So this is a problem of coverage. And so typically, so these are like, so you cannot answer this question straight away like this, right? So, please look into the literature on coverage, right? So you will be able to, so you will have to basically, work it out, right? So how many depending on different aspects, etc. So this is basically, it falls within the within the perspective of coverage, purview of coverage. Okay.
So one more query is that whether I should go for flat mesh kind of topology or
no, you
for altitude.
So I think I think it is point to point is sufficient, right? So you don't need, so you just, it should be point to point, right? I mean, it's basically star, right? Star kind of formation, right? So yeah, but again, so it all depends, right? It's very hard to give you a very quick answer like this, right? But I think it is, why do you need to build a mesh? Mesh is mostly for increased reliability in communication, etc. So you don't need this in this kind of scenario.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, sir. Good morning. So this
Morning.
is Satyam. Okay, so this is really a great and informative session. So I have a question. You talk about different layer of UAV. So whenever we are talking different layer, like so what is the criteria for layering, and like with respect to UAV's capacity and capability, like how they are different, and what is the advantage of layering it? Yeah,
right. No, so layering, it's just a hierarchical thing, right? So you could be so the criteria could be based on, let us say, the task, right? So I told you about the multitasking, right? So you could have different layers taking care of the different tasks for the particular application in place, right? So like this, actually, I mean, it all depends on why and how you are going to layer, right? And so whether layering is at all required, that is also important to understand, right? So it is not like real layering will solve all kinds of problems and you need layering for everything, because when you are talking about layering, again, it comes with a cost, right? So increased latitude, increased altitude means that so you are increasing the latency also, because it is ultimately end-to-end propagation of the signals, right? So you need to so all of these are deciding factors. It is not like any ad hoc network will have layers of UAVs in them, right? So you need to take into consideration what you need, what is the application scenario you have in hand.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Sir, I have also a question. Actually, you talk about the challenges that about fast changing topologies. So,
right.
Sir, apart from environmental issues, if there is it the issue that drones need a third party to communicate with each other? That's why they are not able to change so fast. And if that's the case, then why can't we use satellite to communicate between drones, like satellite phones do, directly communicating if drone contact with each other through some way which does not include any VPN or something like that. So it might be more fast. I'm just curious. I was just thinking, why use third party which is on Earth,
So
which
what
can
is the third party? Not very clear. So actually, I will tell you that your question is not very clear to me yet. So let me just try to ask you that by third party, what do you mean? What is the third party?
Sir, you told now that you need some relay to communicate between the drones.
Right. So basically, when we are talking about this multi-hop kind of network formation, so you need relays. Right.
Yes.
No, it is not third party. Actually, no, it is not third party. Actually, the way it happens in any ad hoc network, right? So basically, the drones themselves, right? So some of these drones in the in that particular network, they are going to act as relays. You do not need another additional entity to be brought in for facilitating that communication. Not like that. So so as it happens in any ad hoc network, here also the same thing. The intermediate node, somebody has to act as an intermediate node, right? So some entity where some drone, some node is going to act as an intermediate. So that particular node will be tasked to temporarily to relay the the signal bits to the next top neighbor, right? So you do not need any additional infrastructure for this, right?
Okay, got it. So it's drones who is communicating only. So then is it issue in drone itself that they are processing it late so that they can transfer it to another drone, and they are also processing late? That's why fast changing can't be done.
Again, not very clear about your question, unfortunately. So so drones.
Actually, I'm just trying to understand that why why they change topologies fast. Means why can't they react so fast?
No. Their topologies do change fast. That is the challenge, inherent challenge in them, right? So it's a fast changing topology because of typically the application requirements. Again application, basically these are all application dependent. So typically these are fast changing. So the drones, they are going to fly all around. So the link that was existing between two drones at one point of time, at the next instant of time, that link may not be available, right? So what you need is some kind of adaptation to this kind of fast changing topology, right? So what is your specific question in this regard?
I think I got your point that the link would be and between two nodes if topologies changes, so it would be it would take time to connect with the other drone which would be there newly present.
Yes. So basically as it happens with any kind of adaptive routing, right? So for example so what happens is, because of the fast changing nature of the topology, and because the topology, the nodes which were connected earlier, they change their positions, because of which they at a later point of time they are disconnected. What happens is, you need to have some kind of a routing algorithm, for instance, just as an example of communication. So you need to have some kind of a routing algorithm which is going to again re-establish the route between the different nodes, right? So for that, again you have this proactive routing, reactive routing. So again so what you are going to do, so all of these so essentially it's an ad hoc network. It's a highly mobile ad hoc network, highly mobile, right? So that means all the challenges of ad hoc networks are again in a more exaggerated way, these are prevalent over here.
No, yes, I understood. So thank you.
Okay, thank
you. Sir, as the channel links are fast changing, when you are changing the topology, do we need to do prior channel estimation so that channel gain information is available?
Yes. So basically so so the way I mean, actually yes, right? So these have to be done, but the people are still not there yet, right? So people are still struggling with the basics, right? Just to establish the links and re-establish the links, etc. Simple things, but actually as things mature, people will be working on, I'm sure, or maybe already, there is so much of research that are going on. It is quite likely that some part of the world, towards the north of India or elsewhere, somebody is already, they are working on these things, right? So yeah, so I think, so basically the full communication issues, these are all channel estimation or else, so all of these are going to be, important in the current context and in the much more, because of the challenges, in a much more aggravated way, right? I can't hear you, Professor Das. You are muted. Professor Das, you are muted.
Because self-positioning of this UAV swarm is required. For that, I asked the question. Right. Another question, sir, I have. If there is eavesdropping in this UAV-enabled wireless network, that means any malicious attackers. So can the cognitive radio can help here in the UAV-enabled network?
Right. So all of these, all research topics, right? So
yes.
So yes, a lot of issues on security, a lot of use of cognitive radio, etc. So these are all topics of research. I also do not know. I am not following everything, right? So I also do not know, but I know that a lot of research is going on these different fronts. Let me share with you some interesting thing that one of my MTech students who came from the military, he did couple of years back. So basically, when we talk about security, right? Eavesdropping is one like this. Actually, the simple thing would be like jamming, right? So jamming of the signals, right?
Yes.
So see, jamming is such a thing that the attacker could use for crippling the network, right? So they don't have to be present very close to where the drones are flying, right? So remotely they could be sending some strong signals, and they could be so there is research. In fact, one of my MTech students, he also did this research that how you can counter this jamming in this kind of network, right? And already jamming, all these jamming based research, right? So these are all resource hungry, right? So all these jamming solutions, these are highly resource hungry. And the basic thing with the drones is how long you can fly a drone simply doing nothing, right? So that itself is a challenge. And when you are talking about so many sophisticated things, these are all like futuristic, right? So we are still not there yet, but I'm sure that give another 10 years, everything, this drone, etc. So these are all going to be very matured by that time. Achha, this is one. Even like jamming is not only something that is negative. Also, many times, for example, in a battlefield scenario, right? Or let us say, in normal, like normal scenarios also. Police, they could be using jamming techniques in order to cripple some unlawfully flying drones, right? And that is something that it is happening actually. Many times actually these law enforcement agencies or the military, they use the jamming techniques in order to cripple these kind of unlawfully flying objects, right? So like this, actually, security is a huge challenge, as I said. And the other observation is that even though, several, about half a decade or a little more have passed on this particular area of research. But the thing is that most of the research papers you will be able to find are still analytical and simulation, right? Mostly. So about 80% of them. So the thing is that still, as I told you, right? So forget about doing anything sophisticated. Simple setting up of the network, making them fly, that itself is highly challenging. Okay.
Right. Thank you, sir. Any other questions from participant side? I think it's fine now. So thank you, Professor Mishra, for sharing your knowledge in unmanned aerial vehicle. What are the challenges and research opportunities? And it is really a very interesting topic to which we all the participants today have explored. And definitely we are all going to be benefited through this. Thank you, Professor Misra, for accepting our invitation in this forum and delivering a nice lecture. Thank you, sir.
So thank you once again, Professor Das, for inviting me. Thanks to NIT Rourkela. You know, earlier I visited your institute so many times, but unfortunately this time, you know, so we have to do everything virtually. And you know, thanks to all the participants. You know, so I wish I could interact with each one of you if it was held in a kind of you know, physical forum. Right, in person, but that is not happening. But I'm sure that, you know, we'll cross our paths sometime in future, and we are going to
You're
meet.
most welcome, sir. You're most welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.